Hello students, hope you have gone through chapter 1 of geography and also completed the written work that was assigned to you. Now in chapter 2 students will study about the population. Before studying the population, in the first chapter you studied that the earth has two main components, that was man and nature. And in this chapter we'll study about people. People are the real wealth of any country, and people we refer as population. Now what does the word population means? Population means the inhabitants of a particular area, and in this chapter it is headed as population, distribution, density and growth. So first we'll study about the distribution of population. The distribution of the world population is very uneven. If I give you some examples, then about 10% of the land area accommodates 90% of the total world population. That means 90% population is residing or living in just 10% of land. Another example, like 10 most populous countries of the world contribute to about 60% of the world population. So all these examples show that the population of the world, population distribution of the world is very uneven. Now when we have to study about this uneven population, we study it through density of population. Now the density means the ratio between the number of people to the size of the land. Density is equal to population divided by area. Now when we find out the density of different areas, we have categorized the world into three areas: high density, low density and medium density. Now when I discuss about the high density areas, which are the high density areas? The high density areas are those areas where the population is more than 200 persons per square kilometer. And we have areas in Asia like the Southeast Asia, East Asia. India is one country where the population is more than 200 persons per square kilometer. In the low density areas where the population is less than one person per square kilometer, very scarce population, very low population in these areas. And if we cite examples, then all the extreme climatic conditions, whether it's the polar areas or the equatorial areas, extreme cold, extreme hot areas, we have very low density of population. In the medium category, we can say the medium density areas are those where the population is between 11% to 50 persons per square kilometer. The rest of the areas that are not included in low and medium come in this category. The West China area or parts of southern India, they have these are referred as the medium density areas. Now what if moving ahead students, what are the factors that are responsible for this uneven distribution? There are various factors. If we categorize them, then the first is the geographical factors. In the geographical factors, we have to study about the availability of water, soil, climate, landforms. Wherever they are favorable to man, the population is high in those areas. Where these factors are not favoring, the population is less in those areas. If I talk about the economic factors, the economic factors are those factors like the availability of minerals, establishment of industries or urbanization. So these are the factors which lead to dense population, where the population is more in where there are minerals or where there are industries, or the areas which are highly urbanized, they have high density population. Similarly, if I talk about the social and the cultural factors, then religion, political unrest, terrorism, these are certain causes which leads to either less population in particular area. So when we talk about these different factors of population, why there is more or why there is less population, another concept that arises from it, that the population increases. Now when the population increases, we refer, or there is a change in the population, that is what is referred as population change or the population growth. The next part, the next topic of the lesson is population change or the population growth. Now, what do you mean by population change? The change in the number of inhabitants. It can be more or it can be less, but any change in the number of inhabitants, that is what is referred as population change. Now, when I talk about the population change, if I give example of India, then in 2011 the population was 121 crores, and 2001 it was just 102 crores. So this increase of 18 crore of population, that is what is referred as the population change. But when this change is referred in terms of percentage, it is called the rate of growth of population. Now, if I talk about the components, the next part that is referred as the components of these, what are the components of this population change? There are three important components of population change. They are referred as the birth rate, the death rate, and migration. Now, what is birth rate? The birth rate, by birth rate we mean that the number of live births per thousand of population in a year is referred as the birth rate. It's also called the crude birth rate. Same thing with the death rate, the number of deaths per thousand population in a year, and it is referred as the crude death rate. The third important component is migration. What do you understand by migration? By migration, we mean the movement of the people from one place to another. What are different reasons? There are different factors why people move from one place to other. Now, the place from where they move is called the place of origin, and the place where they move is called the place of destination. The factors that are responsible for this movement are categorized as the pull and the push factors. The factors which ask the people to move away from that place, they are called the push factors, and the factors which attract the people towards the place, they are called the pull factors. If I talk about the push factors, we have lack of resources, poor health conditions, shortage of water. All these are the push factors. Now, what are the factors which attract the good conditions, availability of resources, good health conditions? These are all the factors which attract the people, and they are referred as the pull factors. Now, apart from these factors, migration plays a very important role in the change of population. Why? Because this migration can be from rural to rural, can be from rural to urban, from urban to rural. These are the students, you must have understood by now what is population growth and population change. And the next topic that is there is the trend in this population growth. What has been the trend? In the initial stages, the population growth was very slow, but over the time it increased. If I give you an example, that at the beginning of the 21st century, the population of this world was just 6 billion, and today it has crossed 7 billion. So now the population has been growing very fast. But if I talk about the earlier stages, the population growth was very slow. So for the population growth that took place over the years, that has been referred as the doubling of the population. That means how many years the population has taken to double itself. In the initial stages it was very slow, but now that number of years is getting decreased over the time. Now, what has been the impact of this enormous population growth? There has been a shortage of resources, they are depleting gradually. There has been rise in epidemics. You can see the corona virus, which has just affected the entire world. So all these are the after effects of the, you can say, the enormous growth of population. Now, how do we study this the trend of this population growth? The geographers have designed a you can say a demographic cycle. As you've read about the water cycle, we have a demographic transition cycle. This cycle can be studied in three stages. In the first stage, what was the stage? That the population growth was very slow. Why was it slow? Because the mortality rate and the fertility rate both were very high. The birth rate was high, but the death rate was equally high. So the growth of population was very slow. In the second stage, what happened? The birth rate in the initial stages was high, but over the time it declined. But the you can say the growth of population even remained high in this stage 2. In the third stage, what happened? Because of the medical development and the technological advancement, awareness, the population growth has declined. That means in the third stage, what happens? That the population growth becomes less, it's low. Why? Because the birth rate also declines and the death rate also declines. So these are the three stages of transition, how the population increases over the years. Different countries are in different stages. If I talk about USA, they are in the third stage. There are the African countries which are in stage 2. There are some backward countries which are still in the first stage. Now, if I talk about this growth of population, there is an earnest need of we have to control the population. And the last part of the chapter that deals with how we can control the population, and there is a need of the hour that there should be family planning, and that can lead to control. Even Thomas Malthus had given the concept of sustainable development, and he has said that apart after this enormous growth in population, there is a need that the population has to be controlled, otherwise there's going to be a crash in population due to war or famine or any natural disasters. Students, you can go through the notes that is there, the important points of this chapter, and also do the question answers which are there along with this. Thank you, students.